Good.
Looks good. Do you need a certain level to get tradable packs? No, I don't think so. I don't know, maybe though. Well, I guess we'll find out tomorrow.
All right. So just to clarify, because I'm probably going to try and chop this up. This is going to be a tier list of Players Cup 2. We're talking about the ladder grind as well as the actual tournament itself, I guess. But with the caveat that the tournament itself could have Vivid Voltage. Is that right?
Yeah, so the big thing about this tier list is basically what we think you should be prioritizing as picks for the tournament keys, so that you can make sure you do all 50 of your tournaments in enough time, but also have a good chance of doing well in them. Like Joe says, there's probably going to be Vivid Voltage by the time the tournament entry thing ends. It's like the end of October, so I'm pretty sure they will just rather than just kicking things off straight away, they'll just hold it for 2 weeks and then just start when Vivid Voltage releases. I don't know that for sure, but
Possibly. It depends if they could do the same thing as last time, where it's the finals that kicks off the new format.
yeah,
It could
maybe.
be
So
similar.
yeah, this could definitely be relevant, and we may come back to.
It also feels weird grinding into a tournament that then changes the format. I feel like it could just be this format and then finals
Yeah,
are
maybe.
Vivid. I don't know, just instinctive. Because
Yeah, I guess
it feels weird to.
the only thing that would confuse me with that is, I like the entry time or the actual tournament is like well into um what do you call it, November, which is when Vivid Voltage is released. So I don't like
Right.
it's just all very weird timing, so I'm not
Yeah.
100% sure. But yeah, either way, for now this is for the entry, and if we need to come back to this because the tournament is in this format, we can make some slight adjustments based on decks that are just unplayable in the current way of grinding in for tournaments, i.e. Excadrill. And if it's with Vivid Voltage, we'll just do another one anyway with Vivid Voltage decks.
Cool. All right. Where do you want to start?
Yeah.
Do you want to start with the good stuff or the bad
Let's start.
stuff?
Let's start with the obvious good stuff. Let's get it out of the way.
Are we happy with the tiers, by the way? And do we want to define these tiers as I yeet ADP to S?
Um, I think S, A, B, C, D is fine.
See if we need any more.
Yeah. I think. Yeah. I think 5 tiers is fine.
Okay.
So
So
yeah,
we
we're
both
both
still love ADP,
huge
right?
advocates of ADP. Yeah. It's the deck that we've both probably put the most hours into, especially we've both played the deck basically uncontested for like 9 months now. I played we both played a bit of Pikarom during Rebel Clash format, but outside of that, we've both been very big ADP gamers. We both think the deck is broken, and I think it's just very, very good. I think it's a good deck to play the tournament with because the games are quick. You'll probably have the biggest target of your back of all time. But at the same time, we've seen from results that it kind of doesn't care because it still wins sometimes. So I think ADP is a completely fine pick for the Players Cup grinding in, just because the games are quick, efficient, and the cards, the inherent 60 cards you play are so broken that you're just gonna have a high win rate regardless. So I think
Agree.
it's definitely if you're not sure what to play and you know how to play ADP at least semi sensibly, I'd say you have a fairly good shot of having very, very good positioning in the tournament.
So just a random question. What would you say is the best deck if you just want to be a counter Q gamer?
Counter Q to ADP,
Yeah.
probably, from my experience, probably Welder Mewtwo. That's only very limited experience, but Welder Mewtwo seems like there's a lot of cute text you can run in ADP to help the matchup, and they all reduce the consistency. And I feel like Welder Mewtwo doesn't need to change a single card from its very standard game plan, and if they can deal with the ADP, if they can 300 the ADP on turn 2 without the ultimate raying, I think the matchup is almost free.
Yeah.
And
If they
that's
don't ultimate ray, they lose, right?
yeah, and that's not necessarily easy, but you have you have 2 turns usually to be doing that, and I think with even with like a heavy Dedenne list,
Yeah.
you can just focus on playing like heavy Dedenne and just
And you
finding welder. You know, it's I think it's the best counter to ADP at the moment outside of random. I don't particularly like the random throwing of hammers into everything. If you're playing a deck to beat ADP rather than adding
yeah,
random
yeah, yeah.
cards in, I think Welder Mewtwo is by
Just
far.
inherently, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think Mewtwo's been the biggest struggle from the ADP side for me for sure, because basically forces quad saucer double boss every game. And like it's not like Eternatus where you can go like panic, throw Zamazenta active and Marnie them and hope that that buys you a turn to Intrepid Sword towards bosses. It's like Mewtwo just sits with game on board because it can just Naga snipe immediately. So yeah, I agree. So I guess that kick starts the conversation on Mewtwo.
Yes.
How do you think it fares against the other two VMAX decks, Eterna, Senti?
Um, both I think are kind of scary because both have such like the easy thing about ADP is it has less than 300 HP, but both of those big boys have more than 300 HP, so you can't necessarily blow them up quickly. Um, they have to damage you first so you can incineroar them or do stuff like do. It's not just an easy knockout. So it's all
Oh
with the
wow!
raid.
Hello,
Pick on the
Azul.
rats. Thanks everyone. Hello.
We're just starting a
Um,
tier list, guys. Welcome.
yeah. So yeah, I think look at these rats.
We've surprised you with ADP top, so you've not missed
Yeah,
much.
I think the matchup, like I think Mewtwo in general has always boasted such versatility that it can win any matchup, and I think the argument is definitely still there for the other two for the VMAX matchups. But I think they definitely require you to be more honest, especially Eternatus. The fact that Eternatus can um, almost always one-shot Mewtwo's and you can very rarely respond to them on them back if they're somewhat patient. I don't think Eternatus has to go like mega ham to try and race you because you have so much HP. Setting up to Eternatus can sometimes just be the game
Yeah.
because they just can't get through too. So I think Eternatus should be pretty hard. Senti I don't have too much experience with, but I would think it's still kind of hard. Mewtwo, Volcanions aren't the greatest thing for Mewtwo's to be hitting because there's no nice Solgaleo that you can use anymore to actually accelerate as well as deal with it. The Incineroar doesn't knock it out. So there's no great attack, I feel, that you can just kind of farm Volcanions with. And if they get into a big Center Scorch, again, you're in a position where if you can't deal with the Center Scorch, it will just start cleaning up. But I think the deck is probably slow enough that Mewtwo has more of a chance just being able to deal with enough prizes outside of one Center Scorch. I always feel like in that matchup, you only ever have to really deal with one Center Scorch. Whereas in Eternatus, you basically, I feel, always have to deal with two Eternatus. But like the Center Scorch decks have so many other attackers and so much more reliance on benching things like the Dene and Volcanion and Heatran that you probably only actually have to deal with one Senti. So I think Senti is probably easier, but Senti is also a deck that I feel like if it just draws the nuts, it can have that kind of Eternatus feeling where they just steamroll anything.
Yeah.
They get like the turn 2 Welder plus Flare Starter, and they just have way too much energy for you to ever really be able to win the game.
So if you're Mewtwo, what like key cards do you play to make those VMAX matchups like stable? Because there's like, I feel like you're trying to be the sort of like Zacian farmer where you're pretty okay against Luke Metal and ADP.
Yeah.
And then you're just like boxy against the other stuff. You're kind of worried about Inteleon playing like random Mimikyus and stuff, but if I was Mewtwo, like the biggest things for me are like I think Big Charm's pretty broken for the deck. I think I would definitely play like at least 2.
I think Big Charm is very important. I think obviously there's been a lot of people toying around with things like Muck Muck. I think Poltergeist is actually the Gengar Mimikyu.
Yeah.
Rahul played that against me week 1, and whilst it was ADP that I was playing, I can see how that can be kind of a surprise.
Well, it basically lets you kill the Center Scorch or the Eternatus that they attached to, right? You
Yeah,
can do the GX and then you can Gust kill, or you
yeah,
can Poltergeist if their hand's big.
yeah. So um, I think Ginga Mimikyu is one of the ones that I haven't tested enough, but I can see that that is one of the very few, like, with Mewtwo losing Mag Cargo, that it actually doesn't have that much burst potential anymore. It's just a very good grindy deck.
Mm.
That has like it has so much versatility that it can always outgrind people because it can snipe, it can just do a big 230, it can do a variety of different things. But there's no big, okay, I'm taking a knockout here anymore. Whereas I think Gengar Mimikyu is probably the best there is at that now, and I think um, Horror House can probably in that kind of format, in this kind of best of one format, you can even probably cheese some wins
Oh
with
yeah,
Horror House as well.
yeah for
So
sure.
I think Horror House and yeah, Big Charms. I agree. Big Charms are actually pretty important because no one's playing Scrapper, so um, the Big
Yeah,
Charm damage is actually the Big Charm HP is actually relevant right now.
like Drill is kind of still like frittering right now, kind of fleeting. I don't think it's huge in Eterna,
I
but
think
we could talk about it.
I think I'd be aware of it, but I don't think I'd ever play
Mm.
around it just because I think there's so well. Eternatus has had this really weird like spiral of it. It's everyone started playing all variety of different Eternatus like
Yeah.
they do whenever a new deck comes out and everyone plays a bit of everything trying to find the best Eternatus. And it felt like everyone honed in on the best Eternatus for like a couple of weeks. And now all of a sudden I feel like every single player is playing Eternatus differently again.
Well, it's because there
Um,
just wasn't like that one regional where it won, and then everyone was like, "Oh, okay, that's the standard." And then there's
yeah, yeah,
like a
yeah,
couple
yeah,
variations. It's still just kind of like this one Hexter this week, this tech
yeah, yeah,
one
yeah.
this week, or whatever, you know?
There was so I've seen the poison list, which I only became aware of today.
Yeah, poison list is
Um,
on the ladder.
there was two people from one of the teams in America that had, I think, won 7 tournaments between them with like a very thick Galarian Wheezing list,
Yeah,
like a 4-3 Galarian Wheezing list or something. Then there's just kind of the standard, but even standard Eternatus has what Zamazenta counters do you play? So
it's
I
like
feel like
four
there's
card variation from the standard
yeah,
list.
exactly. So I feel like, but in none of those lists, well, not in none of those lists, but I feel like the one thing that I never really respect, which may be to my own detriment, is Dangerous Drill. I feel like there's not that many people playing Drill, like you say. I would be surprised to see Drills, even though they seemed really, really broken in the deck.
In
I'd
a
actually be surprised to see them.
in a similar vein, I've seen some Mewtwo's play Dimension Breach Giratina. Would you think that's a decent tech card to make it so that you only have to kill one Eternatus, and then you have like a turn to be like, oh, it's
Time.
dead. I don't get hit this
Um,
turn.
the thing about I like the concept, but the scary thing about that is I feel like in the same way that we've said about so many different attackers and stuff, the energy counter Eternatus list is so wag. Some
You
will
can't
play
tell. Yeah,
no
yeah,
specials. Some will play like 3 capture, 2 hiding, and like 4 basics or 5 basics or whatever.
yeah.
And I feel like the variance between those lists is so huge. It would I don't know how much value there'd be behind them, behind the Dimension Breach Giratina.
Yeah, I think that's.
Um,
I was kind of like setting you up for that because I think it's also
hmm.
just kind of too random. But are you happy to put Mewtwo in A? I feel like it's
Yeah,
pretty
yeah,
pretty
definitely.
solidly A.
I think it's actually outside of probably Luke Metal. Maybe it might be my second favorite deck at the moment.
Okay,
I
cool.
haven't played it much, but just all the gameplay I've seen with it, I've been pretty impressed by it. It's not what it used to be, but it's still just a very good answer deck.
And
I think
we both started experimenting with Incineroar V in the deck. We don't know how
Mhm.
good it is yet.
I've had negative experience with it, but at the same time, uh, my I won't spoil what happened in my OPOP League games this week, but I haven't had fun with the deck so far. But that being said, I think there's still something there. I don't know. Yeah, we're still not sure whether leaning into the Incineroar is worth the space and sort of time
Mhm.
commitment, or whether it's just better to Welder to a Mewtwo and just say, yeah, my energy's kind of going to be scuffed here. I'm going to rely on Welder, but it's what every other Welder deck does.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
maybe.
Well, I just
Just
kind
do
of I kind
that.
of like as well if you're just a stamp list, just leading out Incineroar, then letting a Mewtwo die, and then you're back to like stamp to
Back to
one,
one.
which is
Yeah.
actually like pretty solid, which
Yeah.
is cool. But anyway, all right, should we get Eternatus out of the way?
Yeah, I think Eternatus is probably I would still put Eternatus in A.
You think top of A tier?
Again, personal preference. I prefer stuff like Luke Metal and Mewtwo. So personal preference, I would say no. But I think for the raw power of the deck, it's probably towards the top end of A. Yeah. A lot of people have done very well with it, and I think the sheer variance in the lists that still do well shows that like the 45 cards of Eternatus that are in every single Eternatus list are just so good that you have 15 cards where you need to you can play whatever you want and you still have 45 cards Eternatus, so you can still win the game.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, I think
So what if
the
you were to just be grinding 50 tournaments with this? What's your like 5 cards
I think the only
outside of the
thing
norm? Like
I think the only thing I would super respect is Zamazenta.
okay. And what does
Um,
super respect look like? Does it look like
Saberlion, like two Spiritomb, maybe.
yeah? Okay. I think that again,
Um,
that's like more or less standard. I would say.
yeah, I think it's another case of I just want to set up because I have 340 HP and deal 270 damage every turn. So
Would you play any defensive cards like energy removals or stamps or anything like that? Or even
uh,
Power Plant I've seen recently as well. Power Plant's surprisingly good against ADP as well as Mewtwo. Well, not surprisingly good against ADP. It is just good against ADP because they're trying to Dead Change and boss.
um, okay. I hadn't thought about Power Plant. Power Plant's interesting. I'd try it out. I've always been of the mindset of switches over hides and dark cities. So I'm like
The
um
Slowbro doesn't interest you.
I don't think so. So yeah, there's currently it's currently like Viridians or Bust. So I could see Power Plant being cool. Not being yeah, I might have to try Power Plant actually.
I found
Other
Power Plant to be really strong, and like as sad as it's to say, I feel like 3 Crushing Hammers is still like really good, which is so sad.
yeah.
But 3 is the maximum amount of space I can commit to the cards, and it still feels like ridiculously win against ADP and Mirror, and like surely that's good enough for free spaces
Yeah.
because it's
Have
literally
you
one
been
Hammerheads wins you the game in most of those situations.
yeah. What's your support account been looking like?
I'm still fairly high Marnie, but I'm higher research now, so it's 4, 3, and 4 boss. 4
Yeah,
research,
okay.
3 Marnie, 4 boss.
Okay. Because yeah, my next question was going to be you mentioned stamps. Are you still full
I don't play
Marnie?
stamps. I just play Marnies.
Yeah, yeah. I think I prefer Marnies. Um,
I've seen stamps be solid though, and stamps are also very good against ADP, obviously.
I think stamps are fine. It's just again kind of that stamp isn't a consistency card, and because you run such a heavy Crobat line,
Hmm.
Marnies are very rarely a minus at the end of like
Yeah.
after when you've drawn all of your cards for the turn. Marnies are very rarely a minus.
Hmm.
So I still kind of see Marnies as not necessarily a minus or a down to 5 because you're probably drawing at least 3 from
It's a
Crobat,
yo-yo. Yeah, exactly.
um, and that's like minimum.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think I've always preferred Marnies. The only awkward thing about Marnies is like sometimes you don't like the games don't go on long enough to be able to find the space to Marnie because you have to be bossing and stuff. So in those situations, obviously like stamp is better, but any stamp you draw in the first like 2 turns of the games is dead anyway. So
Hmm. What do you think
um,
about Poker Gears? Do you like them? Dislike them? Because I know there are some lists that play like a slightly lower raw support account to try and Crobat as much as possible, but then you still have the reach to like find boss on the right turn or find Marnie on the right turn. I'm still kind of halfway house on them personally because
I can see,
they're not
yeah,
turn
yeah,
one cards, but
they're
I
not,
don't
but I can see
dislike them
why
either.
I can see the benefit of being able to crow back because one thing I haven't played much Eternatus, but one thing I have noticed playing against Eternatus is a lot of time they will crow back for 2 or whatever,
Hmm.
and you can definitely like you can even yeah, yeah, you can play a bit of a thinner support account, so that, and then Pokegears, which kind of doubles up as um, sort of a -2 potentially for the bats, which is good. So kind of the supplement that you lose in the early turn, you gain because you're perhaps drawing 1 or 2 more cards per bat in the early game.
Mhm.
Yeah, Pokegears sound interesting. I've always been kind of a fan of Pokegears anyway. Like whenever we used to play, like me and Joe played basically 59 cards the same firebox list for about 3 months, and Joe would play like one. Well, Joe tried a variety of things, and I was dead set in my ways of playing one gear.
Yeah.
I know, so I've always liked gears.
Good old
Um,
a spec gear. That's made its
good
way
old
into so many of my
gear.
decks over the years.
Yeah, it's like it's just a good card. Just
Good bit of
find a
kit.
supporter most of the time. So yeah, I can see why gears work, and yeah, they supplement the. I haven't necessarily seen Eternatus drawing or needing to draw the Uber nuts though. So if they don't need to draw the Uber nuts, do they need to draw a lot? I don't know.
It's mostly
Again,
just to reach on boss.
yeah, I guess.
It's like that's the long and short of it, but it also just doesn't kill you in the opening turns. Okay, should we cover Center Scorch?
Yes, this is going to be the one I'm going to struggle more with, I think, because
Why?
I feel like this is the deck I've seen the least out of the 4 we've talked about so far on ladder.
Oh, okay.
So this is the deck, or yeah, out of the 4 we've talked
Well,
about. I should say.
popularity-wise, I'd say it will be probably as popular as Mewtwo from a metagaming standpoint, just from my ladder experience at the moment.
I think if not more.
Slightly more as well, yeah. I can see slightly
and
more.
I think the other thing is, I think Mewtwo is probably a slightly harder deck to play. So that may affect people's decision making as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, if you're just grinding out tournaments, you probably want to play something fairly
rinse
simple
and repeat
to play
if
with
you want to.
a fairly simple game plan that just does what it does.
It depends if you're spreading it out over the month or if you're just trying to be like, okay, we're locking in for 3 tonight, 3 tomorrow night, 3 the next night, you know?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I would say you're probably going to hit more Sentis than Mewtwo's, but I think Mewtwo is. Oh no, Senti has great high roll potential, and like it has great high roll potential, but I think it's slowly asserting itself in the format that it doesn't necessarily need to even high roll. It's just kind of it's now lists are being ironed out. It's early to mid game is more established, and as long as you don't miss welders and stuff like that, if you can find the turn 1 Volk or whatever, I'm pretty sure you should be in every game. The other big deal that Center Scorch has is I'm almost certain in like 99% of cases for these tournaments, your opponent will choose to go first, so you'll basically always get to go second with the deck.
Unless it's a welder mirror, I guess.
Unless it's exactly a welder mirror. I'm pretty sure no one is going to be picking second outside of welder decks, so
and most welder mirrors play Volk anyways, and you can 120 a Volk onto going second anyway, so it's kind of fine. I think Senti's actually, compared to like Mewtwo and these other welder decks, it's like pretty okay going second. Oh, sorry, going first.
Yeah, true.
Because you can like 120 into a welder play against VMAXs and tag teams and stuff. And you can aggro boss anything that plays Zacian on too if you've gone first. So you mentioned like Senti's being ironed out. What does straight Center Scorch sort of like look like? Are you playing any defensive tools? Are you just playing like shedload of Dedene's bats? Like I really like double Eldegoss in Senti.
I haven't seen too much of that ever since we tried it out. I feel like double stamp is. I'm seeing more and more double stamp.
I've seen double stamp a lot. Yeah. Double stamp's in a lot.
So I'd say I can't. That's been the biggest standout thing, but again, arguably that's not particularly standout because people have played stamp in Modder decks for a time anyway. So, other defensive tools I've seen like random big charms and stuff.
I mean, yeah, I kind of meant health wise. Yeah.
I don't think I've seen them consistently enough to think that they're standard.
Right.
And again, it's another one that I probably wouldn't play around, like, because it's another of those things where 320 is so big. How much does 350 actually save you? And
It's
there will be
exactly
certain
Eternatus,
situations.
right? Because
Yeah,
they're
yeah, there will be
playing
certain
goon
situations
pings.
where it's good, but um,
I think the only thing I've sort of like been tempted by is exactly one special fire amongst my like 13 other basic fires. Because
yeah,
sometimes that keeps you out of a turner range.
yeah,
But I wouldn't commit space to it, you know? I'd eat into one fire count, that's it.
hmm
But it's more or less just your Volks, your Centaurs, one Heatran, one Cram, and then just support Pokemon. Right?
yeah.
I'm pretty much off Jirachi as well. I prefer just the
Start
insta
vault.
draw stuff and to start Volks, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair. I can't say I've seen. The reason more so that I say that Senti is being ironed out is that I'm seeing more consistent results from it, which
Right.
I'm probably not seeing many lists to say these lists all look similar, therefore they're ironing them out. It's just I've seen
They're
more
starting to go
consistent
deep, right?
results with it, which
Yeah.
leads me to believe that lists must be getting ironed out.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because otherwise, I think there's not enough space to have that much variance within the deck
Mm-hmm.
to call it a Center Scorch deck. It can't be a Welder Box deck, and Welder Box decks aren't doing well. Center Scorch decks are doing well, so I think that leads me to believe that there must be like a core 50 in Center Scorch that is locked in now.
The thing that
Maybe even
I
like 55.
the thing that I love about Double a Limb Center Scorch as well is that you're just like naturally covered against like Desi, Obstagoon, Zamazenta. You're just naturally covered against everything, and like you could run into like Inteleons and whales, but it's like so rare. So like I think you're basically always like in the game no matter what. Whereas like you can just be hard teched for if you're playing like Eternatus. So I would always rock Center Scorch before I would play Eternatus in the tournaments where it's double a limb.
Yeah, I think
So that's just
yeah,
a
yeah,
small
yeah.
thing.
That seems fair.
Do
There's
you?
no,
Oh, go
there's
on.
no. Yeah, I was gonna say there's no super hard auto losses that are particularly high in the tier list. So
It's like
yeah,
exactly Inteleon, but then also with Cramorant now in the 60, just like naturally, you can just try and like ping off Snom, and you can still actually be in that game. So you basically just lose to the big whale, and that's fine. And you lose to some one prize decks. What do you think about greens build?
um, so I said this on. Oh, where did I say this? I had the whole conversation about greens the other day. Basically, oh, it was with Shay. Of course, it was with Shay. I've
Mm-hmm.
done this already. So the thing I said to Shay was the greens sent with all greens decks. Typically, the win rate of them is lower because people try them, find that they don't play the greens decks properly and give up on them before they learn them. Because I think greens has a very, very high skill ceiling that a lot of people don't care to take the time to fully understand in a lot of situations. And because of that, um, I don't know whether it's a deck to just pick up and play into these tournaments. But I would say if someone has sat and played 100 hours of Green Senti, which now it's becoming more popular. There probably will be more of a player base that has done that. Um, at the same time, because it has a high skill ceiling, I would imagine there's a lot of ways you can outplay people. And as with all greens decks, you can play super wacky stuff in greens decks because you're one of the only decks in the format that tutors stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So that means you can play one of Tool Scrapper, one of Big Charm, one of, you know, random whatever that your opponent can not play around. And definitely in a best of one scenario, you can just win games because of.
Yeah.
So I think greens isn't a deck to just pick up and play for the tournament. And I haven't seen enough on ladder to know how much I respect it as an archetype. But as greens archetypes go in general, I think players that know how to play them well will do well with them, because more often than not they will be able to outplay green decks. I feel have some of the biggest outplay potential in the format.
That's fair. Are you worried
Um,
about Marnie forehead just like losing? That's like, I think Green Senti has a much stronger ADP matchup than regular Senti, so that makes me want to play the greens build if I was to lock it into the tournament. But you have so much more brick potential as the greens list.
Yeah.
Because you're just not drawing an extra 10 cards that you can from everything else.
Yeah, and that is pretty gross. And maybe that's not an ideal solution. Maybe that's like enough of a counter argument to the whole best of one scenario that it's not worth playing playing the deck in a best of one scenario. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't. I'm not a particularly good greens player, I feel. So hopefully no one thinks I'm slagging them off there, because I'm also an absolutely terrible greens player. So I don't know.
I think the magnet makes it quite easy to play in the opening turns.
So
it's like
definitely...
greens to find your switch outs into a Volk, or greens to find your outs to get a Magneton for 2 so you can surge and do stuff. That's kind of how it is, basically.
Yeah. But I guess the biggest sort of thing you can lean into is if you can set up a Magneton, you hopefully no one Marnies you turn 1, and I think the format is such that a lot of people won't be Marnieing turn 1 because they'll be wanting to attach to an ADP. In all honesty.
I mean, against greens decks, you try to Marnie them.
Yeah, but I think Marnie counts are low enough that you should be.
It's just not a thing enough times. Right.
And then you can establish a Magneton. So yes, you may kind of screw your greens over, but you have your turn 1 greens to potentially find your Welder combo. So then you can establish a Magneton and Welder, and then yes, you can't greens from that point on, but you then can't be Marnied from that point on.
No, you basically just blow up Magnet.
Do you think you blow it?
You blow up Magnet basically immediately. And then you just go, okay, I'm either Surge double Weldering, I'm going Surge Welder Boss, or I'm going Surge Greens for the Welder pieces I need, and then do that. Someone makes a good point in chat, actually, that so often the greens are now for just insta-play cards, that they don't actually sit on that higher hand, that the Marnie's not super appealing. I feel like very often you see the Magnet get blown up as soon as he's searched.
Okay, interesting.
But yeah, where do you want to play Senti in general? I feel like I want to put them kind of together because it's what you prefer. Do you prefer having the better ADP matchup, or do you just prefer being a better deck to just farm other random stuff?
Yeah.
Do you feel it's good enough for A? Do you think it's as good as Mewtwo?
I think probably.
I think it has a worse Eternate than Mewtwo does, personally.
Yeah, I can see that.
Because committing to a Volk and putting like 5 energies on the back means you just lose immediately to boss sometimes.
Yeah.
Spreading means that you have to find Heatran, and then you don't have any follow-up plays anyway sometimes. So I think Mewtwo is much better against Eternatus.
Yeah.
So I would always put it behind Mewtwo, but I could still see it being in A. I could also see it being top of B, to be honest. It depends how low you want to go.
I think it's between bottom of A and top of B. I still personally, I guess we'll probably talk about Luke Metal next, it's the other big one. And I personally want to put Luke Metal in A, because I think it has a good Eternatus and can deal with some of these other decks anyway. So I think it's... but then Senti that's another really good matchup for Senti.
What's that? Sorry, Luke Metal.
Luke Metal. That's it's tough. It's definitely between like.
You're thinking of leveraging the Senti.
I want Luke Metal in A personally, and I think, but that also wants me to push Senti back up as well because
of its Luke Metal answer.
Yeah, because Senti should be Luke Metal. So I guess if we're
I'm happy to keep Senti bottom of A, to be honest.
Yeah, okay. It feels like our A tier is going to be huge, but I kind of see the format as S and A tier and then everything else.
I also really think that like you should only be playing S and A tier decks
Yeah,
if you're actually looking to try hard this tournament. So
yeah. So I don't mind the A tier being huge
kind of
because
chonk because I think there are like 6 or 7 viable decks total.
yeah. And I think everything below A tier is kind of like you probably have to expect to have some a rough time either because of matchups or consistency.
Hmm.
And you can probably high roll your way around some of those scenarios, but I feel like the decks in S and A tier are the best ones to be playing.
Hmm.
So yeah, I like the Sentis at the bottom of the best decks.
Yeah, cool.
And I think I'd put ability above greens.
Yeah, I think I would put ability above greens from a personal preference standpoint, but that's also because I've not played enough games of the Magnet. I've basically just seen Magnet gameplay from Tord, and I've
I also
seen him
yeah.
literally crossing his fingers for top decks, like in the majority of games that he's played with the deck. And
I also
he's
think
either shouting "Let's go" or he's shouting like "No,"
yeah.
and doing some scuffed like burning emissions plays to try and not be dead on board.
Yeah. And then the other thing is, I feel like that would also be reflected in the amount of people playing greens compared to ability as well. I think you'll see so many more ability than greens. So I think for our rankings, it probably should be higher as well.
Okay.
So yeah,
So Luke Metal is kind of our natural next thing because you just touched on it anyway.
yeah. I've been a fan of the deck since day one, in all honesty. But I think it's always been pipped at the post by ADP, and I think it's still pipped at the post by ADP. But I think the deck is defensive enough and has enough controlly tools enough to be naturally very disruptive against a lot of these decks, as well as not being controlly enough, like a control deck that you still win in 12 and a half minutes because
Yeah,
you're a sterilization deck, so you still take 6 prizes really quickly. You just do it when your opponent can't win anymore.
there are unironically some situations though where you do actually go for a deck out strat, and that's no longer open to people.
That's true. There have been multiple times I've won because I've been able to boss something into the active and run them out of energy. Um, and sometimes that is the win condition you have to go with. But I think that should be so few and far between that you'll probably. I don't think it will affect too many games out of your 50 entries.
Yeah,
Worth.
it's usually the mirror where it actually comes
Yeah,
in.
exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm gonna sneeze.
Okay. Do you just think it kind of beats up on ADP and Eterna? I still feel like it's not that good against ADP. I think it's like fine against ADP. I don't think it's actually super favored. I think
Yeah,
it. I think.
I
Oh, go
think
on.
it can beat ADP, and I think it needs a couple of hammerheads for it to feel convincing. But the hammerheads have to be at the right time,
Yeah.
or the Luke Metal GX attack has to be at the right time. But a well timed either of those, I think, can be game ending for them because at that point, if you can GX them, they probably can still GX you back. But if you're able to if you're playing like High Marnie or whatever, I think you can potentially cause enough disruption in the early game to mean that ADP sometimes just can't GX attack, and I think you should win almost every game at that point because yours Asians have 30 more HP than theirs, and they actually can't knock yours out. So that's fine. It's just how consistently can you do that? And I don't think it's that consistent, but I think you have enough hammer spam and you still have the GX attack after they've GX'd to take off 2 energy off the board, so you force them to find sources straight away. Plus, you have the natural resistance of 30. So with stuff like goggles or whatever, you can still force them to not take one shots. So I don't think it's the end of the world if they GX either. I don't think it's great. Obviously, in an ideal world, you don't want them to GX, but I don't think it necessarily spells auto loss like it does as soon as ADP GXs in some matchups.
Sure.
Yeah, Eternatus feels fairly comfortable.
That feels like the thing you farm, right? That's the
Yeah.
target is Luke Metal, right?
I'm pretty happy to see any Eternatus. I think as Luke Metal, and even the stuff I mentioned earlier on that I would play in Eternatus to respect Zamazentas. I think it respects one Zamazenta. I think it can struggle with 2 Zamazentas.
For sure.
So yes, you kind of can force the opponent to not play a Zacian down or not play a Luke Metal down, but I don't think the Luke Metal player cares that much if they get double Zamazenta down, because if they have if they're able to power up a Zacian, they can use their Zacian to deal with the Sableye or whatever,
Yep.
and then they can use the Zamazentas to deal with literally everything else in the deck.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think, like I say, whilst I would respect Zamazenta and I would tech for it, I think you have to probably admit you don't beat two Zamazentas, and if they get double Zamazenta down before they get a Luke Metal or a Zacian down, you probably just lose. The thing with Luke Metal, the thing with Eternatus is it can apply so much pressure that they have to bench stuff just to not lose the game,
Yeah.
and that can also be backbreaking for them because then they just have boss targets.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't auto lose to double Zamazenta, but I think if they're able to find double Zamazenta fairly early in the game, it's pretty rough. And then you have to deal with all the hammer spam even if they don't. That being said, I found the deck isn't crazy consistent.
I think it's kind of Lego, personally.
I don't think it's quite Lego, but I think they have to high roll fairly high to be able to do the whole double Zamazenta before you get any chance of winning the game thing down. So that's
yeah, that doesn't happen a lot.
So that's a string to.
But it's also kind of just bait that you kind of want them to attach to things like their VMAX just to take boss knockouts, because then you can be bossing their actual threats.
Yeah. Well then, yeah. So in the games that I've played, basically, it's got to the point where people haven't benched Sableye until they have I don't know, 2 or 3 prizes left, but they can't attach to Sableye twice. They have to attach things like Turbo Patch. You have to be aware of. Turbo Patch Sableye is kind of scary, but I think the exact combination of Turbo Patch Sableye is the only thing I'm super scared of when being a Zamazenta.
And that's completely fine, right?
and even that's on coin flips. And there's so many, you don't care about the hammers and stuff because you will have more hammers than them naturally because you have a GX attack that is at least 2 hammer heads.
Yeah.
And you have 4 metal sources. So you don't care about the Eternatus list running hammers. You don't really care about the Eternatus list that have the Galarian Wheezing and stuff because it has to be active. So none of the ability lock is really that detrimental. You kind of care about the poison.
Poison's the scariest. But
for chip damage, because that can, 1, eventually just tear through you, but 2 can also be used in combination with a Hooper or whatever to do enough chip damage to take a knockout and then just play the rest of the game with the Eternatus VMAXs. So I think the poison is probably the scariest thing, but I don't know how popular the poison list is personally, so I don't know how scary.
From what I've seen on Ladder, it's 10% of the Eternas that I play basically is poison.
Okay. So I wouldn't worry about it too much. So yeah, I mean, like I say, I've always been a fairly big fan of Luke Metal, but I've just always preferred ADP. But I think Luke Metal definitely has a lot of legs, and I think the only super scary thing is Senti.
Yeah.
And Baby Blounds and stuff, but if we're talking about top 2 tiers, the only scary stuff is Senti. I think everything else is winnable, and not just a flimsy, it's winnable. It's no, this is seriously winnable.
Mm-hmm. Is there anything else on the tier lists as we sort of wrap that up that you want to make a case for to be in one of the top 2 tiers? Or are you pretty happy with that being our solid top 6?
I like Inteleon, but I think it needs to draw well. I think it can deal with a lot of these decks. If it does draw well, I think it has very good numbers, and because it's a Rain Dance deck, it can run one-off techs that you can drop out of nowhere and be very good. And it's probably something, but it's probably not something I can make a case for above the top of B, because I think it was very, very good for a while, but I think the win rate isn't there. I think its heightened win rate when it first appeared was probably people not knowing how to play against it. And
more Senti experimentation. I think Senti was more popular at the beginning than it is now. It's having a small resurgence, but in the grand scheme of things, Senti won't be more than 10% of the
So yeah,
meta.
Sandy's percentage is probably still lower than it was.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think Frostmoth is Frostmoth Inteleon is actually a very very solid deck, but I don't think it's
Do you prefer
it's
it? Do you prefer
quite
it
great.
to Moist Mew 3?
The issue I have with Moist Mew 3 is it's not
The
Welder Mew
name.
3.
Oh, okay.
Oh, the name. No, it's not Welder, and it's not like I feel like it's a worse Mewtwo deck. It's a more high rolling Mewtwo deck, and it's a more high rolling Frostmoth deck. But I think the
Do you
other
think
two
it's more
decks,
high roll than Inteleon?
I think so because I think Inteleon is more fine with like the slower approach in general because you have 320 HP.
Like if you miss, you mean?
Yeah. If you miss, I don't think you're as punished.
Yeah, Mewtwo dies
Um,
if it misses.
okay, maybe high. Yeah, no. So maybe high roller is the wrong term to use, but yeah, I feel like Inteleon is probably less consistent, but also less punished by being less consistent. It's probably
Like
it's
it's
still
more flexible.
fairly fine. Yeah. So
That's fair.
um, I think it's a worse Mewtwo deck and probably a worse Frostmoth deck. It has cute quirks, but I don't think any of those quirks draw me to it over the other two decks.
Interesting. Because I feel like I think I'd play Mewtwo Moth before I played Inteleon Moth to a tournament.
Okay.
Because I think it's just got a more manageable Eternatus of the two. And that straight away is like a big draw for me.
It is. I can see why it is, yeah.
Have you played any Big Whale? Have you seen
No,
any Big Whale?
I haven't. I've seen one game of Big Whale where the guy flipped six tails in a row.
Ooh,
Um,
lovely.
I think Big Whale is not a big meme. I think it's okay.
Yeah, I think it's okay.
Um,
Like, I can't ever advocate people to play a coin flip Pokemon in a deck, but
unless it's a whale.
he chonk.
That's the
So
thing. He chonk and
when you
he
go
actually
second, you
has
need so
damage
little.
output.
Yeah, and when you go second, you actually need so little for him. That's what's so sick. You literally just like you bucket the Dene attach, and you're just like, we're in it, boys. Here's the coin flips.
So I was going to make the case for Sandaconda Colossal being a fun, if you want to have fun pick, but I think Waylord has overtaken that for me.
I agree. I think yeah.
It's just as fun, but you need less because you're not stage 2, you're a stage 1, and sometimes you don't even need the stage 1. Like
I would even put Aurora Welder Box above Sandaconda Colossal as your fun pick.
I haven't played any Aurora Welder Box, but deck does look fun.
I've played it for about an hour, and I've had fun.
I'm
More
convinced.
fun than looking for candies, that's for sure.
More fun than looking for candies. So yeah, I think Waylord is fun, and actually, in all honesty, we're saying just play S and A tier. I actually could see like with 50 tokens, you probably can do well with
muck
B tier
about.
decks
Yeah.
as well. And I think it's a very very good B tier deck. So I think I definitely would put Inteleon and Waylord into B tier. I'm not convinced by Mewtwo, but I'm happy for it to go in B tier just because again, from here on down, I care a little bit less about where stuff is because I know it's all not as good as the top 6.
Right.
But I'm not convinced by Wet Mewtwo personally. I think there's better water decks, and I think there's better Mewtwo decks, but in the perfect storm, it probably is better than all of those just because it has a better damage output and it has Solgaleo still in the form of Starmie.
You don't star me a whole lot, to be fair. You kind of weave
them in. But yeah, I think to be honest, all of the water decks actually seem fine, because it's like you have the free fire matchups. Plus, a lot of these water decks have good damage output, whether it's one shot potential or solid 2-shot potential. So that you can deal with these big VMAXs and stuff.
Like Inteleon, I'm not comfortable playing against a Turner or Luke Metal. Warlord, you don't care about what matchup you're up against. It's based on your own RNG. And Mewtwo, you don't want to face the Mewtwo Welder too much. But I think you're okay going against the other stuff.
Yeah.
To an extent. I don't know. I feel like I like Mewtwo the most of those three, but you like it the other order, which is quite funny.
To be honest, the more I think about Wailord, it might I can't put Wailord above Inteleon because I've tested Inteleon and I like Inteleon. So I can't put it above Inteleon just because I haven't tested it. But I could see after a while it being better.
Well is super fun, and it's super basic as a list as well, so it actually rinses and repeats quite often,
Yeah,
which is
I,
fun as
I,
well.
I can see Wailord being a nice balance of fun, but actually can win games to the point where you can probably still qualify.
That's fun. Okay, how fat do you want this beta to be? Because what are you thinking about these welder decks? Are you thinking Blounds is too inconsistent?
Um,
Do you think it's okay?
there's so much money going around. I think it's pretty inconsistent. I think I'd probably put it in C.
Okay. I'm happy with it being in C as well, just for
Top
its
of C?
inconsistencies. Yeah,
Yeah, top of C probably.
yeah. I'm happy with that.
Yeah, it feels inconsistent. It feels like there's three welder decks above it at least already, and I feel like all of them are just better welder decks. Yes, you have the nice, cute I'm up one prizer, but kind of doesn't matter, I don't think, because everything is three prizes anyway, and you're playing Dedenes and Zacians and stuff, so it doesn't matter that you're a one prizer because ADP is going to ignore you.
Yeah, they do quite a lot.
Uh,
You're basically Blounds just doesn't beat ADP enough, and that already just puts me way off. And then the fact that you can brick a lot as well. I'm gonna put the regular welder box in here as well. I think the best way to play it is still with like 2 Blounds and 4 crystals. By the way, similar to the list I put on the channel. I still think that's my favorite way to play a regular welder box.
yeah.
But I kind of do like this Aurora thing. I'm kind of just getting used to it, and
I think
it has Welder Mewtwo vibes,
the
which
thing,
is
yeah,
which
yeah,
is
yeah.
fun.
So I really want to work on this Aurora thing with you because I think there's definitely something there. Because
I mean, there's the element of you're just hitting for weakness forehead, which is quite fun because
yeah,
of the
but I
amount
think
of
that's
3 prize
fine.
stuff in the format.
Exactly, I think that's completely fine.
Yeah, I wanna
Uh,
stick this in B, to be honest. It may be bottom of B just because it's kind of whack and you play a load of one-offs, but that's never stopped Mewtwo from being like a high tier deck. So
I think it's bottom of B. Um, this format feels, I'm not going to say counterable, but it feels like this kind of welder box deck could definitely have legs. It feels like one of the, I mean, we say it's about every single welder deck, but it feels like one of the biggest things that holds that deck back is just the fact that it's a welder deck. The rest of the decks, it feels really, really solid. It's
yeah,
just you have the inconsistencies of being a welder deck, so you're like, well, I'm still a welder deck, so I can probably never break into S tier right now because everything is so consistent with the Denny and Crobat.
hmm
But outside of that, just watching you play it just then, uh, I can see something there. I don't know whether that something is ever above B tier.
yeah. I mean, there are times where it's
Um,
like lol times 2 beat this guy immediately, but
but
there'll
it,
be
yeah, but
times
it
where it
doesn't like
doesn't.
that. It doesn't matter. It's like I think that's completely fine.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay. Let's talk about Obstagoon builds. Altaria goons and Desi goons. Do you have a preference of the two?
Um, I haven't played either, but Altaria is a stage 1, not a stage 2,
Ooh,
and
you've thought this through.
that feels pretty good in a format where you want to be consistent. So I
So
like that.
the cool thing. So I also prefer Altaria. The main reason I actually prefer the Altaria is because you get to play peers in the list because
Okay.
it searches out twins, but it makes Obstagoon live much more proactively against ADP compared to
Yeah.
Decigoons, which has to Rosa basically.
Yeah.
So
Yep. The Altaria attack is just 60, right? It's just flat
yes,
60. Okay.
you
That's fine.
can play powerful colorless.
Yeah, I think if you're
You
locking,
don't
you're
have to
grinding.
though. Exactly.
It's
I
fine.
mean, there's that. The only thing is that sometimes powerful colorless plus goon pings can do some bits. So with a Piers engine, you could weave in just like 1 or 2. So
ADG Altaria Decigoon. Oh.
um,
So yeah, these decks are really interesting. because I don't know where to place them in this kind of format, because on one hand, this is the kind of format where you're probably going to get a lot of people not respecting and making a consistent 60, and therefore you can steal wins.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, I think this is also the kind of format where people will go completely to the other end and be like, I'm going to play a one-off tech for every single matchup because I can see everything, but just have a one-off tech. And is that one-off tech enough to beat, like 3 Altarias or 3 Goons or whatever?
I don't know though. If I had that mindset, I think I'd just play Center Scorch, because a regular 60 of Center Scorch can
Probably do that.
do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know
true.
what deck covers all bases outside of like an ADP that now plays double Mawile and Duraludon and Monkey. I guess that kind of does it as
Yeah.
well. And double Mawile's becoming a low key thing as well.
I think double Mawile is becoming a thing, but I feel like I'm seeing less and less monkeys and less Duraludons in the decks. So
Yeah,
it
Duraludon's
kind of
not
doesn't
super popular.
matter.
Yeah.
Yeah. It kind of doesn't matter if double Mawile comes down, because you can Mawile a load of stuff onto the bench. But as soon as you see the first Mawile, you probably know to then play around the second if you can. And if they have no counter, they still have no counter, no matter how many Mawiles they play. So
Yeah.
I think double Mawile is very, very good in other matchups and helps in these matchups, but I don't think you should cut the Duraludon for second Mawile.
Yeah.
Because I don't think they do enough. The other big thing about them is the other thing that scares me about Altaria is, even though it's only 30 less damage and 20 less pings from Decidueye, that difference in damage in a 12.5-minute game scares me a little bit in terms of, can I finish the game in time?
Uh-huh.
And because of that, I think that naturally makes even Decidueye's output, I don't know, can consistently finish games in that time. So when you're reducing net 70 damage per turn,
you'd probably have to play boss and Sinlin in your deck. You'd probably have to play 2 Sinlin and at least 1 boss.
Mm-hmm.
And probably Fiona as well, so that you don't just get retreat timed out, because the list I put on the channel didn't have any Gust at all.
But you were also allowed to play 25
But I was also allowed to play the full game, and I was happy decking out people.
It's difficult whether I want to place this in B or C, because I think it's between B and C, but I don't know what outweighs the other. One being able to just abuse people not playing any answers because they want to play a consistent 60 and be efficient. On the opposite end of the scale, can people just retreat enough to mean that you don't have to, because it's not a deck that gets set up quickly either. You probably need like the first 3 or 4 minutes of your 12.5 minutes to establish a board state that can win. You then have to win.
Yeah, I mean, Obstruct win con is fast. 90 damage a turn's good.
So yeah, I think Obstruct is fast. Basically the thing that scares me is Eternatus. Can you beat Eternatus in time? Because they can have 340 HP that you have to deal with multiple times.
I mean, I just straight out the gate think Altaria is way better than Decidueye. Like, I would definitely play Altaria over Desi.
So yeah, I think
Desi basically never beats Center Scorch or any welder deck, but Altaria can, because you can actually 1v1 a Volk army a lot easier.
I agree. I think those issues go hand in hand with both decks, and if therefore they go hand in hand with both decks, you should just play Altaria because it's more consistent. So I think
I want to put this top of C, by the way.
So I think Desi goes a tier below Altaria,
yeah.
And it's just whether they go in B and C or C and D.
I think I prefer, like, just because people can respect, and ADP now going to double more, like, you can't expect to lone Altaria, because you can even lose to, like, Whap Down, because you're only doing 60 damage. So it's like they don't even need to play Altaria to get through a couple Altarias and then Mawile you anyway. So you have to go lone Goon, like, immediately against ADP. And if they're playing double Mawile, you can still lose that game if they just, like, ultimate raid an early Jirachi or whatever. But because Altaria Goons gets to play Piers, you get into Obstagoon faster, which makes your ADP matchup way stronger comparatively to Desi, which is, like, just, like, literally twiddling its thumbs until it gets ultimate ray in your face, and then you can try and Rosa.
Yep.
So, okay. Yeah. We're gonna throw control into D exactly for this tournament, because we've talked about the timer a few times. If this wasn't timed, I would put this either high B or low A tier, because it's a Turner farmer and it's close to 50-50 against ADP.
Yeah, I think I'd put it probably top of B as well. I think both the Sentis are a little bit scary.
Yeah. It has a
But
Luke Metal matchup spread basically,
yeah,
but
yeah,
then
yeah,
it beats Luke Metal.
exactly. But I think it's yeah, but I think it's more prone to uh one misplays on your own end, but I think the lock is fairly consistent that you shouldn't be like once you get into the lock you shouldn't really be ever out of it unless weird stuff happens like like chip into three targets into chip into three targets where you just can't do anything anyway. But that's always been an issue for control decks, so that's nothing new.
Yeah.
So yeah, in terms of the meta, I think it's top of B tier. But in terms of this tournament, 12 and a half minutes is simply not enough time
Yeah.
to play this deck.
Yeah.
So,
And I know we sort of had this whole discussion with the limitless qualifiers, and that turned out to be a myth. But like 12 and a half is actually just like not enough. Like it's actually not enough.
That's the thing. It turned out that 25 minutes
with Belelba in format.
Well, 25 one Belelba was in format, yes, true, but also 25 minutes where you're not capped at only having 12 and a half minutes is very different to having 25 minutes, but you both have equal amounts of time.
Yeah.
Because in the 25-minute rounds, it probably still was like 20 minutes control gameplay.
Yeah.
So whilst there, from a time perspective, visually, it's the same amount of time per round, it's not at all. So yes, a lot of people, probably including ourselves, definitely underrepresented Control's presence in the Limitless tournaments. But I think now, I'm certain this time, it's not good for this tournament.
Yeah, cool. I'm gonna just toss some more stuff into D tier because I don't think they're great. I'd probably put Mad Party above Desi. I'd probably put Aeropod down low. Basically, these decks really struggle against ADP. Mad Party also struggles against Eternatus if they're playing Ziggy Net build. I mean, yeah, they're just not great decks, right? Aeropod is super inconsistent.
A lot of these decks initially came to success in ban ADP formats, and as you can see, ADP is still in this format. And from what I understand from viewing tournaments that my friends have been playing, as well as just the general Twitter feeling, ADP is absolutely everywhere in these tournaments. So these decks are probably really good in the ban ADP tournaments, but unfortunately,
that doesn't matter.
They don't translate very well.
Green's Bird Trio was also like a hot meme for like a minute, but I feel like it's actually pretty poor. Have you played the deck and think any differently of it, or?
I haven't played it, and I can't say I have even seen enough gameplay to be able to disagree with you. So
okay, I
don't know, but I don't.
If you want to play greens, I would play Green Center Scorch above Bird Trio.
I think I want to. Yeah, I think after today has shone some light on two things. One, I need to get some Waylords. That sounds like great fun.
Obviously.
Two, Green Senti feels like, yes, if you can deal with the mining issue, a deck that could be really, really rewarding to play.
Yeah, it's nice. It's a nice... I mean, the thing is, the attacker just sits there as well, so there are times where hand disruption doesn't matter because just wins just kind of there for you.
Yeah.
So it's a greens deck that can only really has to worry about greenings for like that turn rather than greenings ahead a few turns more often than not, I would say, which is what previous greens builds had to do.
And I think that was
that's always what made me nervous about greens.
yeah, and it was one of those things that also increased the skill ceiling of greens decks because you were forced to play multiple turns in advance, but now you have such a good attacker that can just win the game. You don't necessarily need to do that, so yeah, that's interesting.
So I've got a Vikavolt on its own, and that's kind of trying to encompass like Amoonguss, Lycanroc, any other like X other, and I think it's just trash compared to the Vikarom thing that's sort of come out.
Yeah, I've actually been impressed with Picarom's conversion rate, but I feel like I haven't seen a straight Vikavolt in. I saw one person on Twitter saying they were really enjoying it, but I think that's genuinely the only person I've seen in the format saying they really enjoy it. And like more power to them, I'm sure it's doing them really well. But I feel like I just haven't seen this deck.
Mm.
I haven't seen Straight Vikavolt in so long. Whereas Pikarom, I think with and without Vikavolt has been impressing me. Like it's
Yeah,
come.
I'm giving it a namesake. Like sometimes it's just one Vika Volt in there, right?
Yeah. It's been impressing me. It's like it like top eight at a tournament, and I was like, oh, this is cool. Pikarom. No, there's a Pikarom man that still believes in Pikarom. But then like the next Hextra or something, there were like 6 in top 32 or something, and I was like, oh, it's actually potentially a real deck. It's not anywhere near what it used to be, and I still think it's like top of B at best, but it's actually a real deck probably. Um,
I'm happy for it to chill in B. Something I'd say is that it kind of gets caught in that weakness crossfire if there are going to be wacky fighting decks in the room. I also think the Senti uptick is like horrific for Pikarom. Like completely horrific. I also think Inteleon hype has died down a lot, and I think that kind of was a thing. So I feel like it's like bottom B, top C, but it's got a lot of like hype around it at the moment just for a few performances, but
yeah,
these
I'm
are
pretty happy
basically
to put it
glorified
in.
League Cups. I'd still stress that.
I'm pretty happy to put it in bottom of B.
Okay.
The one thing I will say is I think, like you said, outside of Centiskorch and Eternatus, Pikarom I think can still do some pretty funky stuff.
Well, Pikarom tries to hammer its way through Eterna, right? That's what it tries to do.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it's like you said, it's probably a lot of the water hype has died down, so it doesn't help its win rate. But I still, um, yeah, I still think it's
Pika
pretty
feels
tame.
really weird for me. It's basically taken the idea that's saying that like Pikarom only needs to play 50 cards to have a workable like shell and do what it wants to do. So then you're just putting in like a Mimikyu, 4 Crushing Hammers, and like a few other cards that make life awkward for the other decks. Like that's
Yeah.
literally what it does. It's like guess I'll play these. So that's fun, but
So yeah, Soda Kings just said it exactly. Pikarom with Hammerhead's S, Pikarom without Hammerhead's is D, and I'm pretty sure the cards in that deck are the 4 hammers, and it's just covered by a Pikarom cloud. Because I think hammers are so, like it doesn't matter what hammers are in at the moment. Hammerheads are S tier,
yeah,
so and it just happens to be like you say that like the Pikarom shell is probably one of the most consistent shells outside of the hammers bit, so that's why
that's
it's one of the
why.
better hammer
Yeah,
decks.
yeah, exactly.
Because in the matchups you don't need the hammers, you have a fairly consistent working deck, and then in the matchups that you do need the hammers, when you've used the hammers, you have a fairly consistent working deck. So you're
Mm-hmm.
not actually punished by playing the hammers.
Okay, let's yeet Salamence to D. Right, we don't think he's worth playing as a VMAX compared to the others.
Uh, yeah,
I mean,
sure.
sell me him if you want to, but I don't see.
Nothing. Well, nothing more than I think he's better than all of the D tier decks, but the bottom of C. So I'm happy for it to go in D. It's fine.
Okay.
I think it's
I mean, it's basically its
I think
role.
it's
Just
workable.
there's
It's
no
a lot of
role
work,
there
but I think
though.
it's workable.
I just don't think it has a role in the format,
No, that's true.
and it should
Yeah,
get rolled by the best decks more often than not. So that leaves Sand. Do you want to put him into C tier, D tier, as
I think
high
C
as
tier.
B tier? Yeah, okay.
Um,
I think C tier as well.
I've actually after watching one of our friends play Sand the other day. Admittedly, he had no ADP, and that is a huge factor. But in like if you do take away ADP from the format, like he actually had a fairly workable deck against a lot of the other decks, as well as having uh type advantage on the second best deck in the format. So like I think it's actually workable because of exactly the fact that it has a good typing to make up for the fact that it auto loses one of the best decks. It probably auto wins the other best deck, and the other 3 matchups are well the other 4 matchups are fairly winnable. The issue is ADP is so popular. It's not a case of you take one bad top tier deck and you have one good top tier deck. ADP is like probably 30, maybe even 35-40% of the meta. That it's a bad loss to take.
40 is a very high percentage to quote Jack.
I think it's that's okay. That's just what I've been seeing on. Maybe it's just people angry about ADP that are just complaining about ADP a lot. But regardless, the point's still there. Like ADP is so popular and so yeah, I guess just in general so popular that you can't really do the whole matchup roulette. I'll take one bad matchup and have one good matchup, because ADP and Eternatus I wouldn't say have equal percentage points. So it's like taking two bad matchups if you're playing two ADPs for every one Eternatus you play.
The thing is, I do think they'll be similar in play though, even though we think one's S and one's A. I think Eternatus is as popular as ADP on ladder, just from the
Maybe, yeah, maybe.
The last 3 weeks I've been playing a shed letter ladder just for content reasons or whatever.
Yeah.
And Eternatus and ADP are pretty much joined at the hip for the amount of play they see, at least in casual play.
Yeah. Either way, I'm pretty happy it's in C. It's matchup roulette, and it can actually win matchups, but the issue is it's still a rare candy deck and has an auto loss to ADP. So
cool. I'm pretty happy with this tier list. Chat have like sort of mentioned a few other decks in passing that we may as well comment on. Have you had a look at this little like Psychic Rotom Mewtwo deck?
So I saw on Azul's Twitter. I saw that he played it. Just so I know I'm quoting the right Rotom, it's the one that searches for 2 energy and attaches, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I'd need to... Again, it kind of comes down to, is it a better Mewtwo deck than Welder Mewtwo? If it is, I can see it potentially being an inclusion into the meta, just because I think it just straight up takes the space of Welder Mewtwo. If it can... If the Mewtwo box can find answers for all of the same... Like, in the same way that all of the Welder Mewtwo answers...
I think its main package is Gengar, Latios, Nightwatch, and Snipe Naga. I think those are the 4 big ones.
They feel a lot weaker nowadays, now that they're sometimes not even two-shotting things.
Yeah, that's kind of my sentiment as well.
But it's, again, like, the thing is with Mewtwo is I'm always so scared to write it off, because
versatility.
Random attackers that we've forgotten about, especially in a format where you can just queue up tournaments over and over again. It can take like genuinely 24 hours for people to realize what the tech is, and then another 24 hours how to play around it. You can play 50 tournaments in that time. So I'm always scared to write off Mewtwo decks, because they are always the most versatile decks in the format. But again, from what I've seen, I don't know why I would play any Mewtwo deck other than the Welder version.
Yeah, I'd be similar. I think it's probably just a thing to pass the time rather than a tournament deck. A few other things that we saw, Spiritomb as a sort of one prizey deck. I think I'd still put it in D tier, because I don't think it's that strong, personally. You could maybe put it in, maybe an argument to put it in C tier, the Hooper Spiritomb thing. It's basically had 0 results, this format. We saw Eggrow, a comment about Eggrow. There's way too much Welder for Eggrow to do well.
Is that like Rillaboom Row?
I mean, does it matter which ones? Take your pick. I'll shove them in the same tier. Yeah. So, I don't think I missed anything else from chat. Those are the ones that stuck out to me. Someone mentioned Tina Chomp as well.
Tina Chomp's another deck.
Have you seen the Tina Chomp like Marsh Champ thing?
I've seen some lists. I can't say it's a deck I talked about with Shay, and I haven't stuck to my promise and tried it out since. But it's a deck that I'm actually really interested in. I don't know whether it is a better sort of slow, grindy deck than like green Center Scorch or something like that. But I think Tina Tromp is such an efficient attacker that I think there's potentially legs there, and being able to play like the one thing that would scare me would be Eternatus, but being able to naturally play like Marshchamp fairly easily in your lists means that that's not really a worry. I think either. So it's a deck that I don't want to write off completely because I think it has a lot of legs, and I think it's another of those decks that feels a bit like a greens deck that potentially has so many lines of play and stuff that very good players that know how to play the deck will just outplay a lot of opponents.
I feel like you could definitely see people who are like the 1% who play it, or the sub 1% who play it and grind
But yeah,
with
they
it.
always do well with it.
I can see it. There's definitely a lot behind those two attackers as a combination.
Yeah.
So that's kind of okay. I do think it's quite narrow in its matchup spread. Like, you should lose to like random Altaria goons, Blounds, this, that, and the other. But you kind of just take that when you're playing random rogue yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well that was pretty extensive. I'm happy with that tier list as well.
Yeah, seems good.
I'd pretty much only debate really the Frostmoth deck's placements in sort of positioning, but I feel very happy with our A and S tier and their positioning. Pretty happy with everything that we've put in B tier, everything we've put in the other two tiers. So hopefully that gives you guys a good sort of insight to where we think the format is still. Any other like closing thoughts on like big tech cards you'd think about playing, or anything else?
I don't know. And still, I've always been a consistency gamer, I think, and I'm still kind of that mindset. Yes, you have 50 tickets, but don't fritter them with an ADP list with 20 techs. That means you don't get the turn 1 GX or turn 2 GX. I think you will win more games just by winning the game than by playing a random tech.
Especially because Mirror will probably be as popular as any other archetype, so you just want to out consistency Mirror.
And don't let the random text cloud your vision either, because you'll remember the random game where you stole a win with the one-off Copperage V you played for whatever reason, so you'll keep it in for 20 tournaments and never use it again. Like, in my mind, the format of this is so simple. You play one of the top 6 decks, you play a list that you know how to play and that does what it's meant to do, and that's all you need to do to be. It's top 256 in America and Europe, and top 128 in Australia and LATAM, I believe. And I don't think that will be easy, but I don't think it will be particularly hard, especially if you just play a deck that does what it's meant to do.
Yeah.
So
I don't think it's super stringent.
Yeah, so my advice would just be use all 50 of your tokens, and also use all of them. Don't waste them on playing a C-tier deck so that you can write a tweet saying, I won a tournament. Just win, and then get into the point where you're in the top 256, and then start thinking about how to beat this double limb system. I think for now, the best tech is just consistency.
Cool. Very good. All right, well, that can be the tier list. I think I'm also pretty much happy to end the stream there because I'm absolutely shattered today, to be honest. So I think that's our lot, Jack. So you said you haven't started grinding any tournaments yet?
No, I think I'm going to start next week.
Okay.
I don't know for sure. I think I want to try and do all 50 before Champions Path is legal, because I think I know the format better pre-Champions Path than post-Champions Path.
Okay.
So I think and Champions Path is legal as of next Friday. So I think I want to try and get all 50 of mine done before next Friday.
Wow, okay, so you can step it up big time.
The issue I have with that is towards the end, we'll have a much better idea of how many points you need to win, potentially, and it will take the pressure off.
Yeah.
So I don't know for sure. I might do like 30 pre-Champions Path and then like 20 post. But
you're
maybe
basically just trying to get
maybe this time next week I'll still have played none because I have so many other things I want to do as well. So it could just be a last minute grind. Oh wait, the deadline's tomorrow. Let's play some Pokemon and stream for 24 hours.
Delicious. All right then. Well,
sounds good though.
Cheers, guys, for stopping by.
And
yeah, I'm gonna hope to stream. I probably won't be doing many tournament games. I haven't really thought about doing it. If I do, I'll just play ADP. So I mean, I can just stick the recorder on if I want to.
Yeah, I
But
don't think
that's
I'll
really about
be.
it.
Yeah, I don't think I'll be recording too many of my um what do you call it? It's my entry things because
Hmm.
I don't think I'll stream them definitely because I'll want to stream on a delay, and at that point I don't think I'll want to stream. I'd rather not stream on a delay
Yeah.
than stream for the sake of streaming. I may record some of them, but I'll feel if I start recording some of them, I'll want to commit to all 50, and I don't want to commit to 50.
No.
So I think it's probably going to mean I'm just going to have to do them in my downtime.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we have so many new series on the channel at the moment. Hopefully, you guys aren't
Yeah.
starved for content.
And also just on that, I didn't stream any of my control gameplay because it was basically me with my mouth wide open trying to do actions as fast as possible. But for my next 100, I'm hoping it's going to be there's the opportunity to be more interactive. So probably stream some of those.
Do you know what's next?
I want to play a welder deck of some description. Haven't decided which, so
Okay.
that's where I'm at. So we can have some nice welder stats. And I think that'll be the most interesting going first and going second win rate.
Yes.
Because there's big sort of emphasis that you should always go second as a welder deck, no matter what. And I'm pretty certain the stats will show that, but so far the other decks that I've played all have a much higher win rate going first. So sometimes just denying those other decks the choice to go first is going to balance it out. So that'll be fun to see.
Yeah, I agree that the percentage will be higher, but it'll be interesting to see what the percentage is.
Yeah. If it's
Um,
if you lose like way more going second or not, then it's like a red flag.
yeah, should be interesting. I think, yeah, should be interesting. Should be interesting.
Cool. All right then, we're out of here. See
Yeah.
you when we see you, I guess.
Yeah, everyone. I'll be on tomorrow for Back to Basics.
Oh yeah.
We'll be doing some tournaments. So yeah, come tune in just after midday or like 2 probably for a couple of hours.
All right.
Yeah.
Bye.
Cheers, everyone.